Hi everyone, welcome back. In this session, we are going to continue from where we left in our last session and going to set up configuration um, on a Git repo. So the first thing I want to show you is I am in my Git repo and I created a repository named NCU Microservices config, and I actually transferred all my configuration here. So inside API gateway, there is API gateway.properties. And this contains exactly what we saw in our previous session. So I have application name, port, and other settings. Okay. So you are going to create a repo. The second thing which we are going to do is I am going to go in settings and in developer settings, and I'm going to create a personal token classic, and I will say generate a classic token for me. And probably I will say token for configuration server, and I will say no expiration. I'm going to select repo here, and these are all selected. And I think that's all I need. Maybe I will select this. Okay. And then I will say generate. I'm going to copy it and go back to my application configuration server application properties, and I'm going to just paste it so that I will keep it. Now what I am going to do is instead of this security, I'm going to have the username as my username for Git, and for the password I am going to put this. Okay. A couple more settings: location of the Git repo where the configuration is, and where to look for the configuration files. So I'm adding search path, and I'm adding all those directories which I created: student service directory, course service. So if we go back, and I will go back to my repository, right, so I have created all these directories inside the repo, and that's why I said search for these. Also see that this is a private repo, that's why we need authentication. If it's a public repo, you don't need it. So I think we are all set to try the configuration on the Git repo, and we are going to comment out this because now our configurations are not local. To test it that this is working, I'm going to just rename API gateway and service discovery to make sure that they are not picked locally and they are actually picked from the URL. Okay, so what we are going to do is just have a look at the configuration one more time so that we are sure that we are not missing anything. Looks okay to me. Let's run our configuration server. Okay, it ran. To test it, let's see if it's serving the configurations. So if it is serving, that means it is taking the configuration from the Git repo. And there is a security. I actually overwrite my security and okay. So this is to access the configuration through configuration server, and the configuration server is going to use these credentials to fetch the configuration from the Git repo. So that's why we need these. So I am going to actually update this. This was not right. So this should be the Git username and Git password and the Git URL and the Git search path. I think now it looks good. I am going to rerun my configuration server. Okay. Now let's go back and we are able to get the configuration. So this means the configuration is now coming from the Git repo. I think we don't have to do anything for rest of our clients. They should be good to go. Let's try API gateway. Run it. And our API gateway should be running on the port is 9004. And if we go on the repo API gateway.properties, the port is 9004. Let's check. Okay, so it started on 9004. We see errors because I did not start the discovery service, so it was not able to register with that. But I think our configuration server is working fine, serving the configuration which are on a Git repo. Now, a few things I want to do here before I end this session. The first thing is I'm actually not going to write these two in my configuration file. Why? Because let's say I put that all this code on a Git repo and share with everyone. So anyone should be able to use these tokens to get into my repo. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to create environment variables on my local system, and the value is going to be passed from those environment variables. So that is the first thing I'm going to do. Okay, so I have set up these values in my environment variables, and then I change these here. This is the first thing I'm going to do. So, and I restarted my VS Code. So to test it, I'm going to run the configuration server, go to the browser. I don't have to run my REST services, because to test it, it is enough to go to the browser and test one of the configurations. So I will see if I am able to fetch API gateway configuration. And we see that our configuration is coming, and it is coming from the GitHub repo. So our configuration server is working fine with these environment variables. So that means we don't have to put my actual username and token somewhere on the web, and they can be local to my system. One more thing I am going to do is I'm going to have a setting where I should be able to switch between local repo or the local configuration to the configuration server, or a configuration onto the Git. So what we want is we just need to put some code here. Let's say I set up another environment variable called config mode. And when my application is running, before that, I get this environment variable. And if the value of this environment variable is native, I am going to set the application property native. Otherwise, I will set it to Git. So this means what I'm doing is I am setting this application profiles.active property to native if the environment variable config mode is set to native. Otherwise, I set to Git. And I am just going to write it here. Spring application new. Okay. And then dot run and arts. Save it. And that's it. So this will be set, and when it's native, these settings won't be taken, which are specific to Git. And if it's Git, these settings will be taken. So this way, you should be able to set up a configuration server which can take your configuration natively or from a URL. So I think that is all I wanted to show you, how to set up a configuration server which takes a configuration from a repo or a URL, as well as you can configure it to have the settings locally or on the URL. So that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in my next session.